Imagine picking up a book where every chapter throws you off balance. Just when you think you know what's coming, the story takes an unexpected twist. Now, what if I told you that the Bible is full of those moments, but no one really talks about them? Yes, some of the biggest plot twists in the Bible are hiding in plain sight, and they're about to change the way you look at these ancient stories forever. So, what are these twists, and why are they rarely mentioned? Stick around, because today we're unraveling the most shocking and overlooked surprises in the Bible, and trust me, they're going to blow your mind. But before we jump in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to stay connected with City on a Mountain. You won't want to miss more videos like this. David, the unlikely king. Let's kick things off with one of the most well-known figures in the Bible, David. Everyone knows him as the guy who took down Goliath with nothing but a sling and a stone. But that's not the biggest plot twist in David's story. In fact, the true twist comes way before he ever faces the giant. Here's something most people gloss over. David wasn't even considered worthy to be king by his own father. When the prophet Samuel came looking for the future king of Israel, David's dad didn't even bother calling him in from the fields. Samuel had to ask, "Is this all of your sons?" Only for Jesse to reply, "Oh, there's one more, but he's just a shepherd." Imagine being so underestimated that even your family forgets you exist. But here's where it gets really interesting. David doesn't rise to the throne overnight. After his victory over Goliath, David spends years running for his life. King Saul, consumed by jealousy, hunts David down, turning his life into a game of survival. David is forced into hiding, dodging spears, living in caves, and even pretending to be insane just to stay alive. It's not the fairy tale rise to power most of us expect when we hear the name King David. So, what's the twist? David's journey shows us that the people we often overlook, the ones we underestimate, might just be the ones God is preparing for greatness. The story isn't about instant success, but about how God shapes a person through adversity, trials, and even being forgotten. The prodigal son, the real twist no one talks about. Next up is the story of the prodigal son, a tale you've probably heard a million times. We know how it goes. The younger son demands his inheritance, wastes it all, and then comes crawling back home only to be welcomed with open arms by his forgiven father. But what if I told you that the real plot twist in this story has nothing to do with the younger son? Here's where things get interesting. The older brother, he stayed, he worked, he obeyed all the rules, and yet when his rebellious brother returns, he's furious. He can't believe that his father would throw a party for the guy who blew half the family's money on wild living. In his mind, he deserved the celebration, not the screw-up who just came home. The twist? The older brother is just as lost as the younger one, but in a different way. The younger son was lost in his rebellion, but the older son was lost in his self-righteousness. He thought that following the rules made him more deserving of his father's love, but he was missing the point entirely. Both sons needed grace, but only one realized it. This isn't just a story about a bad kid who gets a second chance. It's about two sons who are lost in different ways, and a father who loves them both unconditionally. And maybe the biggest twist of all, the story leaves us hanging. We never find out if the older brother goes into the party or stays outside, which forces us to ask ourselves, are we willing to embrace grace, or are we stuck on thinking we can earn it? Abraham and Isaac. The twist behind the test. Now, let's move to a story that's both terrifying and perplexing. The story of Abraham and Isaac. You probably know the gist of it. God tells Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac, the son he waited decades for. And just as Abraham is about to do the unthinkable, God steps in and says, "Stop." But here's what no one talks about. Why would God ask for such a horrifying test in the first place? And why does Abraham, without a word of protest, go along with it? The twist here isn't just that Isaac gets spared at the last moment, it's what this entire event foreshadows. This story is a preview, a prophetic shadow of something much bigger that would happen thousands of years later, when God would send his own son, Jesus, to be the sacrifice. But unlike Isaac, there's no last-minute reprieve for Jesus. He's the sacrifice that goes through, and through that death, life is given to all of humanity. The twist isn't just in the survival of Isaac, it's in the deeper message that points us to the ultimate act of love and sacrifice. What seems like a story of death becomes a story of life, and that's the biggest twist of all. Jonah, the prophet who didn't want mercy. Everyone loves the story of Jonah because, well, who doesn't get fascinated by a guy getting swallowed by a giant fish? But there's way more to Jonah's story than the fishy part. The real twist happens after Jonah finally obeys God and preaches to the people of Nineveh. Nineveh, a wicked city, listens to Jonah's warning and repents. And what does Jonah do? He throws a tantrum. That's right, the guy who just witnessed a massive revival with an entire city turning away from their evil ways is furious. Why? Because Jonah didn't want God to show mercy. He wanted Nineveh to be destroyed. Here's the twist. Jonah's story isn't about a prophet on a mission to save a city. It's about a prophet whose heart was more stubborn than the people he was sent to preach to. God's grace extended to the people Jonah hated, and Jonah couldn't handle it. He wanted judgment, but God gave mercy. The real question isn't why Jonah ran from God at the start of the story, it's why he's still running from God's grace at the end. The story ends with Jonah sulking and God asking, "Shouldn't I care about these people?" It's a gut punch because it forces us to reflect on our own grudges, our own hesitations to extend grace to people we think don't deserve it. Jesus, the King who redefined power. And now we arrive at the biggest plot twist in the entire Bible, Jesus. From the moment Jesus starts his ministry, people expect him to overthrow the oppressive Roman regime and establish an earthly kingdom. They're waiting for a warrior king, someone who would rally the troops and lead a revolution. But what happens? Jesus turns all those expectations upside down. Instead of conquering by force, he conquers through sacrifice. The ultimate twist comes when Jesus, the King of Kings, allows himself to be crucified. The very act that looks like the greatest defeat becomes the moment of the greatest victory. The twist? Jesus' kingdom isn't about military power or political influence. It's about a radical kind of love and humility. His death on the cross wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something entirely new. 3 days later, he rises from the dead, showing that death itself has been defeated. This is the ultimate plot twist. The story of Jesus isn't one of a king who wins by force, but of a Savior who wins by laying down his life. And through his resurrection, he offers new life to everyone who believes in him. It's the ultimate reversal of expectations, and it changes everything. And there you have it, some of the Bible's biggest plot twists that often go unnoticed. These stories remind us that the Bible is far more than just a collection of moral lessons. It's full of unexpected turns that reveal deeper truths about who God is and how He works in our lives. If you found these stories as fascinating as we did, don't forget to subscribe to City on a Mountain. Click that notification bell so you'll always be the first to know when we drop a new video. Share this video with someone who loves a good twist, and leave us a comment with your favorite Bible story plot twist. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.